I know, right? Like, you're coming for I try to get done as quickly as possible for both of us.
16 and 17.
I don't like it on my plate any more than you guys like the way before.
Things that she put up on the very bottom. Yes. For our quiz.
Yes, we're doing growth and development today, infant and toddler. Like I said, that's chapter 16 and 17.
What content section?
It's the slides.
It's all over.
She put the slides on the page at the very bottom.
Yeah. So, like, they're spread out throughout the content sections. I just separate them. So, I think one of them was in the last, I don't remember. One of them's with respiratory or something, and one of them, I don't know. They're in there. Yeah, it does have its, and then your slides, though, it says growth and development at the bottom.
And then it's broken down into each
Yes,
section.
and it has infant and toddler, preschool and school age, and adolescent. We finding it? Are we good?
I think so, I don't know. It's not under the certain content section?
No.
Well,
She just added the slides last
are,
week.
but that doesn't matter. Yeah. Like I said, they're just kind of, they're in there because they have to be in there, but I don't teach them that way. So I'm doing it for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because I used to do it that way, and it was terrible. It was not good. So I quit doing that after year 1. All right, are we good? Ready to go? Like I said, I don't really have any announcements, a whole lot. Next Tuesday at the end of class, Deaconess is coming to talk to you guys, so they better bring some pizza. They're supposed to. So they didn't bring anything yesterday. I told them not to bring food because we had Super Bowl food, but then they didn't even bring a ink pen. So
Well, we can't be having
I
that.
know. I was thinking.
You gotta have some
They did talk about
incentives.
their rate of pay, which is pretty excellent though, so we might let it go, if you wanna work there. But anyway, they're coming, at the very end of class, and like I said, they should be bringing food, okay? So that's what they said they would. And they did the first time they came. I expected some snacks, or at least a ink pen. That's the only other thing, like, so we have quiz on Tuesday. I'll let you review this test at the end of class as well, on Tuesday.
Are we gonna take the quiz first, then
We're gonna take the quiz
lecture?
first, we're gonna come up and lecture, and then we'll go back and look at the exam, okay, and then we'll come back for equals. We're gonna move around.
How many questions is the quiz?
Yeah, 20 some. Okay, I'm like, you guys, I don't know, I look at it later. I have until Tuesday morning at 8:30 to have that. So, but it's usually gonna be 20 some, okay? All right, so infant and toddler. So we're gonna start with chapter 16, which is the infant. And infancy is a rapid growth and development age, okay? So remember neonates, we already talked about newborns. That was the first month. So that's the first 4 weeks of life, okay? And we talked about pregnancy, right? Like fetal growth and development and all that back in OB, right? We covered that stuff already. So infant is 1 month to 12 months, okay? Then like I said, rapid growth and development. And I'm just gonna put these in here because these are my kids, okay? These are mine. Obviously you don't have that on your blackboard because you don't share your kids' pictures on the internet. Not that I know anything about that. So this is their hospital photos, okay? Like their hospital photos when they were born, and then their birthday photos. So you can see we go from a brand new baby who can't really do anything, right? Can't do anything for myself, to this person who can feed themselves a little bit. They start saying a few words. They're mobile at this point, right? Like that's a lot that happens in that first year, okay? So that's what I'm saying, like there's a lot of things. And really with infant, when we go through it, the big thing is you have to memorize those milestones for an infant. Okay? You just kind of have to do it, okay? So like I said, that's their norms. Milestones in growth and development are things that we expect kids to achieve by a certain time frame, okay? It's usually a big time frame, like a few months, right? But we expect them to achieve it by the end of that time frame. Everybody's a little bit different, so like I said, you may learn to sit up at 3 months, or you may learn to sit up at 5 months, right? There's a point in time where we're like, you need to know how to do this. That's the end, and if you're not, we're concerned about it, okay? And like I said, the most important thing is remember, we have to know what's normal to know what's not, right? So that we can fix it, figure out why for these kiddos, okay? So we're gonna kind of go through all of these things a little bit for the newborn. Like I said, all of their body systems are immature, we already know that, right? And it takes a while for them. So CNS system is immature, but it starts maturing pretty rapidly. It's not really done until they're 2, like, okay, and they're still learning after that, but like the myelinization of all the nerves and all that should be good by the time they're 2 years old, okay? But again, it's what as your brain develops, right? Your CNS, as your brain develops, then that's really going to feed the rest of your body's development, right? As my brain grows and learns more, then the rest of my body can do more. You know it's a struggle with a baby to figure out that sleep and wake cycle, right? They're got to get up around the clock, right? And sometimes their nights and days are very confused for a while. It may take a little while into infancy before you get that figured out for them, and that's frustrating for parents who are tired, right? And then we'll talk about feeding. We talked already about breast and bottle feeding with the newborn, and we kind of covered all of that, but we'll cover some other milestones that we expect these kiddos to get through. And definitely these kiddos should have some social interaction, okay? You have to interact with your child. You can't just provide basic needs. Well, I fed them and changed them and kept them clean, right? They're gonna live, they are, but they're not gonna learn social development, okay? You have to interact with them, play with them, speak to them, talk to them, and not everybody does that, right? You can't just change them, feed them, lay them back in a crib and walk away, right? They need that. And they really should be pretty interactive with you by the time they're 4 to 6 months old, okay? Like they really should be, interacting well. Talk about separation anxiety a little bit, because that's a big, we kind of touched it a little bit in earlier chapters as well.
Bless you.
And so I don't really get super wound up about Freud. He's not the most important person in growth and development, but he does have it right a little bit. So oral stage of development is an infant, but what are babies doing? How do they live? How do they survive? They have to suck, right? They have to eat. So like that makes sense. And we know that it also, is survival, but it's also comfort, right? It's how they comfort themselves. So when they want that bottle or they want that breast, or sometimes it's comfort. If they want that pacifier, sometimes it's comfort, okay? Like I said, so you have to allow them time to do that. And we've talked about kids who are NPO and on IV fluids and things, and how they need that pacifier and they need to be able to suck, okay? It's called non-nutritive sucking, that's the comfort type, okay? And then eventually, kiddos learn to kind of soothe themselves and comfort themselves other ways, right? Usually by the time they're a year old or so. The other thing we have to think about, we've talked about a little bit with our med surg and our safety content, is that hand-to-mouth activity that they do, and the safety of that, especially when they're big enough to reach and grab and put things in their mouth, right? You have to think about that. So motor development follows brain development, okay? So as your brain matures, the rest of your body's going to. And so like I said, these are just kind of milestones that you guys are going to have to remember. There's usually nice tables in your book that kind of outline it as well. So like it's how they use their hands. Okay, how they use their hands. Remember, we know those newborn babies up to about 3 months for using their whole hand. And remember how we talked about simple to complex and that cephalocaudal and proximal distal development. So they're gonna grasp, okay? Then they're gonna do this, okay? Yes. Then they're eventually gonna go to this in that first year. Again, I'm refining my skills a little bit as my brain develops and as my muscles and things develop as well, okay? And then this parachute reflex, you've all seen it if you've seen a baby who's just learning to just pull up and stand and starting to walk. You know, when they stand up and they're kind of wobbly a little bit, they throw their arms out. It's a balance. It's a safety mechanism that they just have a reflex to do. And you should be seeing these things at the end of this time frame, right? And if you're not, then we're worried. Is this a nutrition issue? Is this an oxygenation issue? Is there some underlying, problem, medical problem we need to figure out? Is there an underlying parenting problem, like no social interaction or something like that? What's going on with this kiddo? Why are these things not? And I don't know if when I was going through my book the other day, the headers on my table for this were weird. They were. So if you're looking through your book, like the months weren't on it. So check yours and see if it actually has them on your tables. Mine had all kind of wonky symbols. Did you guys have that too?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. So I can tell you what they are. I don't have my book up here with me, but we can, I can kind of make a copy because I was like, mine was weird. So I didn't know if your guys' copies were weird too. Okay. I can just make a copy of them and put it on the blackboard because I wrote my times and my ages in mine because I knew what they were. But I was like, is this going to be a problem?
Yeah, then the backside has the months though.
Yes, but my page was exact, had all kind of symbols, like didn't have actual ages. So I'll just make a copy of mine and put it on Blackboard, but where I wrote the months in, okay? But I wanted to check that I put a note in here to check that. Because I was like, that's gonna cause you all sorts of issues, okay? Then emotional development and kind of psychosocial development is Erickson. Erickson and Piaget are super important, okay? Erickson is your, like I said, emotional, psychosocial development, and Piaget is your cognitive development, so your brain development, all right? Emotional development for Erickson is trust versus mistrust in infancy, right? I have to learn to trust my world, right? Like my parents, my environment, before I can learn to trust other relationships later on. So if you don't meet a baby's needs, they're not gonna learn to trust you, and then they're not gonna learn to trust in the future, right? And you kind of have to make it through all of these levels, okay? Like you have to complete the one before you can get to the next level, okay? You cannot spoil a baby, okay? I know people say that all the time, but if that baby is crying, they pick them up, they need something, right? They need something. So, meeting their needs is not spoiling them. And that need might be emotional, or it might be comfort, or it might, might be something like that. So when your baby cries and you pick them up, they're like, oh, then that's, that means I can trust them. Okay? It's a basic form of trust. But I'm hungry and they feed me, right? Or my diaper's wet and they change it, right? Okay, so it's kind of with that attachment as well, those mutual satisfying behaviors a little bit, okay? But again, be careful and never force kids to try and do things before they're ready to do them. That really is every age group, because you're just gonna stress them out, right? So again, we gotta know what's normal, what we should expect kids to be able to do at that age, okay? And like I said, I kind of already talked about this, babies and toddlers need constant, right, stimulation or constant care, it feels like, right? They're just needy because they can't do anything for themselves. They don't play by themselves. They don't do any of that, right? They're kind of needy, and that's okay because it's normal for them. And a sick kiddo is even more needy, right? Like they require a lot more of your time and care, definitely, right? As they should. So thinking about that, when sometimes parents get super tired and super stressed while they're trying to take care of a sick kiddo, even if it's just acute in the hospital, sometimes if you're in there for a few days, you can get really wore out. But think about if you have a kid with a chronic illness, right? Something that you have to do, like cystic fibrosis or asthma or something like that requires treatments and medicines and things all day long, every day, okay? Like I said, we need to sometimes give them that respite care if they have home health or us in the hospital need to be like, do you guys just want to walk down and get something from the cafeteria, or you want to walk outside for a minute? That was one of the best things. My second baby was in the hospital for a week after he was born, on the peds unit, and I was super like wound up, and I like didn't ever leave his side. I'm like, what if he cries and he needs to eat? And well, because I was breastfeeding and stuff, so I was like, I can't leave here. Which my husband was great. He was also able to be off of work, and he ran and did all the things that I needed him to do outside of the hospital. But he was probably about day 5 and the nurses were my friend. We worked in similar areas. So then when my husband finally looked at me about day 5 and they're like, why don't you go to Walmart? And I'm like, I can't do that. They're like, he's better. Things are fine. I think you would feel a lot better if you got out of here. And I was like, okay. I think you're trying to tell me something, right? And I did. I went out to Walmart and I did a few things, and came back and I was like, all right, you're right. That was probably the thing that I needed, but I couldn't see that. I'm the same way with these babies in the nursery. Like, do you need that nap, right? Do I need to take this baby for a couple of hours so that you can calm down a little bit, that everybody can calm down, and then we'll come back and try this again, right? Sometimes that's what they need, right? And so you can't be like, well, they're bad, Mom, because I need a break. That's not the way that works. So this one again, you've got some, I think these boxes were okay, but you guys look at it and tell me. I can't remember. Figure 16.3 and box 16.1 are the ones that these things come from. So again, we all know that every baby's a little bit different, but usually we should expect these kids to be doing these things by this time frame, okay? Some do it earlier, right? But this is like the end date, okay, the end time. You should be doing these things. And again, this is something you're just gonna have to remember, okay? You just have to memorize these. There's no way around it, okay? Because this is what's important in babies. So, like I said, and I've kind of summarized it here too, or you have those nice charts in the book as well, okay? So definitely I'm kind of being like, all right, and think again, we learned about cephalocaudal and proximal distal. So that's how these kids are progressing, okay? Like I hold my head up, then my shoulders, then I sit, then I crawl, right? Then I pull up, then I may be walking by 12 months, okay, maybe. Right, then there's some other things that I do with my hands, which we just kind of talked about. And then some other things. By 6 months of age, they should have doubled their birth weight. That's important to know that. And also they should have tripled it by 12 months. Okay. Those are growth milestones, and the others are developmental milestones. There. But again, I can't really, you're just gonna have to read it. I don't have any other way around that for you. So like I said, again, it's our job as nurses for health promotion and anticipatory guidance to be like, what is this kid's next step? And we teach parents what's normal and the safety things they need to know for this baby, okay? And then if we recognize that something isn't going well, that something's not happening like it should, that we get them the referrals, right? Or that someone is helping them figure out what's going on, okay? Like I said, we're that gap, right? We're the ones that spend the most time with our patients, wherever they're at. Okay. Then definitely something, and this is something we start teaching parents before they ever leave the hospital with their baby, right? Is how to handle it a little bit, okay? If they're irritable, because they're gonna be for the first several weeks of life, and that can spill over if they have colic or something like that. But they're gonna be real fussy for a while. That's because their brain's developing and they're kind of irritable. And they're crying because that's what's happening to them. And then sometimes kids get lethargic, which sometimes they're overstimulated. If you pass them around to every family member, right, and all this, because we do that, right? It happens because everybody wants to see them and hold them. And they get a little overstimulated, then they'll just shut down, right? Like, I can't handle this anymore. But really kind of the interventions that we do, the actions are the same, right? We just need to calm this kiddo down either way, okay? So again, I need to be in a quiet environment. I need to be I usually turn the lights down. Anything that's gonna be like stimulating to this baby, I need to kind of soothe the environment a little bit, okay? We're gonna talk quiet. We do the like swallow them up, we rock them, we bounce them. You can play those sounds, right? That like the whale sounds or whatever. That kind of white noise stuff. I used to always tell people to put a blanket in the dryer and then swaddle their baby in it, because it's warm. They like that. And it's also okay to put your baby down and walk away, right? Because again, if this is going on, especially if it's colic, that's like unexplained irritability. Like we cannot figure out why this kiddo is this way for this long. Okay, we expect it for a while, but sometimes kids are super irritable and fussy, and like they cry for 3 hours every night from 6 to 9 or whatever, right? Like these are kids that are very difficult to manage because you can't figure out how to get them to calm down. Okay, so parents get real tired and real frustrated if you're doing this for weeks at a time, right? And you haven't slept. So hopefully you have somebody to help you that you can hand off this baby to back and forth, but not everybody does, right? Not everybody has a support system, okay? Hopefully you can find one. And like I said, they're just tired. Sometimes they snap and they'll shake the baby, right? We don't want that. So we're teaching them all these things about how to soothe this kiddo, and tell them if it's okay to put the baby down and walk away if you need to. Like, so if you put it in the crib and it's crying, obviously it's breathing and it's safe because there's no way for it to get anywhere, right? As long as you don't have other stuff in the crib. So, again, and there's, like I said, we teach them about maybe it's dietary a little bit, like maybe feed them a little less, burping them really well, that colic carry where you lay them on your arm and kind of bounce them and rub their back and belly a little bit. Doing those types of things. And again, hopefully someone's there to give these parents a break, right? That you can switch off with. Nothing wrong with that. So here's the sleep one. We know we've already talked about babies and their sleep. It's going to be 2 to 4 hour intervals that they're going to sleep in, and then they're going to be up to eat, right? Eventually, by the time they're a year old, hopefully they're sleeping through the night and you're getting 8 hours. Hopefully. Right? I don't think my kids ever slept. I don't think they still do. Like they're adults now, so it's not my problem. And then they kind of learn their sleep-wake cycles by whatever you do in your house, right? So if you're a night shifter, your baby's going to learn a night shift routine, okay? But again, or if you guys like to stay up late and sleep in or whatever, the baby kind of learns that, right? Because that's when things are happening in the house, okay? The stimulation for them. Okay? We already talked about safe sleep. And then self-soothing, again, there's nothing wrong. Like, you don't want to run in there every time the baby just wakes up, right? Because they do that all the time. Baby's gonna wake up and they'll stir and they'll look around, right? You don't need to be that over-the-top parent that they're awake, I've got to do something with them, right? We do want to meet all their needs, and if you don't want to leave them in there crying and fussing, I'm not one of those people that let them cry it out, because that's a trust versus mistrust issue. But you don't also have to pick them up or do something with them every time their eyes are open, right? So sometimes people are like, it's my first baby, I don't know, they're awake, I need to do something. It's like, no, you need to give them a second because they may just fall back asleep, right? Just like we do, we kind of wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and fall back asleep, right?
My daughter does that, like rocking.
Yes, like so that's okay. Like if they're just, that's all right to just let them be. It's that self-soothing a little bit, as long as they don't need anything, that's okay. Like I said, you gotta kind of get in the middle, right, as a parent, and you kind of learn that as you go. Because sometimes, especially with the first one, you're like, oh my gosh. And then the second or third, you're kind of like, they're fine. You just figure that out, okay? Then illness prevention is really about well-child checkups for kiddos. And they do those at like 4, 6, 9, and 12 months of age. That's standard. Your baby goes to the doctor or the clinic or wherever you go just to be checked, to make sure they're meeting their growth milestones, make sure they're meeting their developmental milestones, they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. Okay, so that's important to help prevent problems down the road. Then they're going to start receiving immunizations at 2 months of age. Okay, they kind of get immunizations at the same time as their well-child checkups. Okay, other than that hepatitis B at the hospital, you don't get vaccines until 2, 4, 6, 9, 12 months, and then you get them a little bit longer than that. And then, like I said, it's really important for us to do that anticipatory guidance, right, where we're teaching teaching them what to expect, safety, what your kiddo's gonna be doing, how they're gonna eat, those types of things, okay? Diaper rash is real common in babies, so it's kind of a skin thing that we look at. You guys know frequent diaper changes, wiping those babies front to back. If they get a diaper rash, expose it to air. There's all sorts of diaper rash barrier creams out there, okay? Use one of those as directed, okay? So let's talk about diet. I think we kind of talked about this a little bit already. But so remember, for the infant, you've got your human milk or breast milk or formula for the entire first year, right? They should have that. You're not switching over to cow's milk, okay, until after 12 months. Not appropriate. We talked about that solid food, right, is about 6 months of age. By that point in time, their digestion is mature, like they have the enzymes that they need to break down solid food, and their mouth works appropriately. Because before they were just sucking, right? That was their reflex, that's what they knew to do. Their tongue kind of sticks out all the time. It's called the extrusion reflex, and I got a picture of it here. Like, obviously I was trying to feed my kid, probably, and he wasn't feeling it, okay? Wasn't feeling it, because they don't know what to do with it. Like, you put the food in there, and then they just shoot their tongue out and spit it out, because they're like, I don't have the muscle development yet to actually chew and swallow that yet. So, that's why we're waiting, okay? And so that happens before you feed them solid food. So, and then like I said, eventually, usually you're gonna feed them like rice cereal to start with, and then you're gonna start baby foods or table foods kind of after that, one at a time, so that you can kind of figure out what they like and don't like and that sort of thing. And then eventually you're gonna be cutting up food in little pieces, right, so that they can pinch or grasp that and pick it up and eat it. And like I said, it's so important to follow those growth milestones, okay? Like, make sure, and usually you kind of know too, like, they're eating well, they're growing, they're not irritable, they're sleeping, right? That's a healthy baby. Like I said, I also have that biter biscuit. I don't know if you guys have used those for your kids at all. They still sell them, I think. They're a gigantic mess, right? And then chew on them, but they like them. You can see he's using his grasp there, and got some muscle movement there to actually consume that. Okay, so here's your new foods. Like I said, obviously when babies are well, when they're sick, that's not a good time to judge if they can tolerate the food or not. You don't mix things with formula, and that's an old school thing to do, okay? Like, you can mix the cereal with formula or breast milk, but you're feeding it with a spoon. You're not putting it in the bottle with the formula, and that used to be a thing. My father-in-law cut a giant X hole in the nipple of the bottle and mixed up formula and cereal and fed it that way. Like, okay, it's not appropriate to do that. They used to have feeders. They used to be cereal feeders. I haven't seen one for a long time. But it was a special feeder, had a nipple on the top with a special hole in it, that you mixed the formula or breast milk or whatever with the baby cereal, and then you fed it through that. Okay, but we're not doing that stuff anymore, right? Because we shouldn't be. They should be able to. By the time you're introducing that, you should be feeding them with a spoon, and they should be taking it. If they can't, then they're not ready for it. Okay. Because like I said, I don't know if any of you have seen any of those. But like I said, my kids are old, so it's been a while. And I haven't seen those things like where you can buy them. But I bet somebody's got one tucked away, right? Some grandma's got one tucked away somewhere, probably.
I did the fancy waller down nipple with my oldest.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, my father took a box knife and cut a big X hole in the nipple and then fed it that way. So, I mean, that's what you did back then, but it really wasn't appropriate. So, yeah. My pediatrician told me to feed my 2-week-old infant cereal, which was inappropriate. But again, how else are you going to get him to eat it? So my father-in-law didn't. But again, I was 16 years old. This is my first baby. And he's like, he'll sleep better if you feed him. He's a big baby. I'm like, well, I thought I was already feeding him, but okay, you know what I mean? But he had to split cereal. He's fine, he's made it, he survived, right? But really he couldn't digest that, and it's probably why he didn't sleep well. It probably really didn't fix it. But that was in middle school. He's 30 now, so again, that was, 30 years ago. So take that with a grain of salt. And then like I said, introduce one food at a time. And so your cereal first, and then if you're gonna start baby foods or table foods, and we usually recommend vegetables first and then fruits, because if you give them fruit first, that's sweet, and they're not gonna eat any of the vegetables, right? Like, why would I eat that? That's disgusting compared to fruit, right? So that type of things. Be careful with allergens, and that's kind of an on the fence kind of subject. So things like eggs, peanut butter, which you shouldn't be feeding little babies anyway because they can't swallow it. It's a choking hazard. But things, dairy, sometimes they shouldn't be having that yet either. But anything that's like highly allergic, okay, that potential for that, you really should kind of hold off until they're a little bit older for that. But they are talking about introducing it when they're toddlers because they seem to think it's making allergies less. But I don't know, they're on the fence about that. So you can start juice around 5 to 6 months, but you got to be real careful with juice because sometimes juice fills them up and then they don't have the actual food or the breast milk formula that they need. Okay, no orange juice, they don't have the enzymes to break down that citrusy, acidic juice. You can do apple juice or something like that, but not really orange juice. Okay, and then usually by the time they're a year old, you're starting to wean them from a bottle or the breast to a cup because they should be able to use one. Use their hands and suck on it. They a lot of times want you to water it down, like half and half at least. Yeah, it's just really not a great idea because there's no nutrition really in juice. So, but again, you can, but it's not really the best thing to do. So remember, we already talked about babies to have such a huge, high metabolic rate, right? They need a lot of calories. So we do need to make sure they're getting that breast milk and formula and they're getting all the nutrients that they need with the correct foods at the correct time, okay? Car seat safety. So this chapter, I think, has a couple different things in a couple different places. So remember, car seats are only for in the car. You shouldn't be putting your baby in a car seat to sleep in the house, okay? That's inappropriate. Obviously, if they fall asleep in the car in it, you can't do anything about that. But they're not for nap times or anything like that, because that can contribute to SIDS. And so, like I said, they're really for only in the car when you're in. So you should have a rear-facing car seat. You can use an infant or a convertible model. I got a couple of pictures there. If you've not dealt with car seats at all, the infant carrier is the one with the handle, or you can have an infant-sized one that kind of grows into toddler and preschool age groups, okay? But they need to be rear-facing. I didn't change it on this slide. It must not have been in the book 2 years of age, and it says it later when we talk about it in this thing. So mark out 1 and put 2. Okay, 2 years. That's what I said. That's why I didn't change it here. I changed it later because it says 2 later.
Wasn't
but I
it
was
only
that's
a
wrong.
few years ago that they changed it officially in the state?
It's been a while. So it should have been in this update. This is a brand new textbook. It came out this year. So it should have been in there. And it is later in the chapter because I changed it on my other slide. I don't know why I didn't change it here. I marked it out later when I was looking at it that's wrong. So 2 years. Okay, 2 years of age. And really the best place is the center of your back seat for your baby. Okay, so thinking about impacts, like if you were in a car accident, the center is the safest place, right? It would take the least impact. But now if you've got more than one child and more than one car seat, you're just gonna have to figure that out, right? Like somebody's gonna have to go in the middle. The other two are gonna have to go. Yeah, favorite in the middle. You know, I mean, I had one parent, they had, you can have a lot of car seats in your car, right? Like you can have a lot of little kids. She had 3 little ones. They were all in a car seat. And I was like, all right. Cause she's like, yeah. She's like, we got one. We've got 2 other kids in car seats too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of car seats, right? For a car. And I'm like, hopefully you've tried that out. Like, cause we were talking about, she's like, I can't put just one, I don't know. I'm gonna put one of them in the middle. I don't know yet. Like, cause we teach this at the hospital. And so I was like, yeah, you're just gonna have to put them all in there and figure it out. And then she goes, I drive a Prius. So I'm like, have you physically tried to put all 3 of these cars in? She's like, we did. It's tight, but they all fit. I'm like, oh wait. Good job, I guess. Yeah, like I said, we were having these conversations. And I was like, she's put 3 car seats in the back of the Prius. All right,
But she has trouble with groceries too.
I know. I don't know what kind of trunk space they have, but yeah, never actually driven one. I don't know, but yeah, like I said, so middle of the back seat and rear rear facing for 2 years. Okay. The other thing we always talk about is nothing. You can see there shouldn't be any blankets, there shouldn't be coats, there shouldn't be anything underneath those straps. Okay. Because the straps are what's holding your baby secure. And the chest clip is the chest clip. It doesn't go down here. It doesn't go up here. It goes here. All right. That's what's keeping your baby secure. You need to make sure you can only fit one finger underneath those straps too. Okay. Because it needs to be tight. Because again, if it's not tight, that baby can slip out if you're not next to it. Okay. Then I think we kind of already talked about falls. Usually, like, until they're mobile, it's kind of real hard for them to have a fall unless we leave them someplace, right? So don't leave them on the counter, don't leave them on the changing table, don't leave them on the couch or the bed unattended. They can wiggle and squirm and move around and fall off, right? That can happen. If you're putting them in the swing or the car seat or the high chairs or whatever, make sure you have the straps on them, okay? So I kind of talked about that. Like I had that patient who had their kiddo and wouldn't quit putting them in the car seat in that room on peds, and then it fell out of the car seat with their head.
Don't forget to attach it to the actual
Base as well, yeah.
Or leave it on top of your car.
That's also important, yes.
Yeah, I remember one time, a grandma had to use it, to,
Uh-huh.
and then we put it back in the car. Well, we had to go to Indy, and we stopped at the gas station, and we forgot to attach it to the actual.
Yeah, there's been times when I'm like, I didn't put the seatbelt over it back in the day because they didn't always have a base. Oh my God, how long has that been ago?
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. It's fine. Yeah. Everything was okay.
Yeah, everything was okay till then.
Yeah.
Mine like changes.
Uh-huh.
So like I'll get my seat like, oh, she's facing the window.
Yeah, like, oh, I've got to go back and fix it. Yeah,
That trips me
right.
up.
These things happen.
That trips me up because I'm not used to
Yeah.
sliding.
And I'm telling you right now, car seats have become a long way since I was using car seats. Like they're fancy. Yeah, they are. When they bring them into OB, I'm like, dang, like, that's nice. You know what I mean?
Some turn into like strollers.
Yeah, like there's all kinds of fancy stuff out
That's
there.
so cool. I love it.
And so, like, I don't teach them because there's a million different car seats and a million different cars out there. So I'm like, you guys are gonna have to read the booklet on your car seat and your booklet in your car and make sure you're putting it in there correctly. Yeah. Then when kids start moving around, right, that's when we got to make sure we put up baby gates, we keep things locked, or get those safety locks on things, because if they can get into cabinets, they can fall downstairs once they start crawling, once they start walking, they can get into some trouble, right? So we definitely need to pay attention to that when they get old enough, because again, there's a lot changing, right, in this first year, going from not being able to do anything to doing a lot. Then toy safety, like I said, there is a reason on the box that it says a certain age on it. That's when developmentally they should be able to use the toy and not be frustrated with it. And it's a safety age. It shouldn't have little parts and other things that they can get and swallow and that type of thing. So it's a safety thing. All right. Obviously, safety is most important. And usually they like colors and textures and noises, right? They kind of like those types of toys that they can rub different things, because they have sensory motor development at this age, so they're using all their senses to figure out the world. So like I said, they're going to shake it, they're going to touch it, they're going to put it in their mouth, they're going to do all of those things. So it has to be safe, and they, like I said, have different textures and things like that, and noises and things. All right, you guys want to take a break? Okay, let's take a break, and then we'll finish this up. Do what?
The quiz
Quiz
is
is
on
on
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
And then we have the week following, we have a quiz and an exam.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh? It has a spoon in it. I told you I have a mom bag. I have oranges if you want oranges instead.
I always have, yeah. I'm always packing.
I also,
snacks. I used to have to feed Mrs. Strange all the time.
I feed Izzy every day.
I'm like, and one day I was like, I forgot 1%, okay? So
What you
I'm gonna
want?
have
We have peaches, a
I'll
tray,
take this. It's good.
fruit bar.
Thank you. I'll take this. I'm like the one down there that carries the mom bag, you know, the mom purse, and has all this.
If you talk to Izzy, she'll tell you that my car is full of snacks because she got in my trunk one day, and I'm always prepared if I break down. I could survive in my car for like a week, okay? There's like a case of water in there, and I have one of those little baskets in the back that has like my emergency stuff, but then it also has like a box of granola bars, a box of beef jerky.
Do you leave it in the heat and the cold? Like,
The stuff that can survive.
okay, because I was like it can get a little weird.
We take it out and eat it, and then put the other stuff in.
The sun.
Water's
If
water.
it's in the plastic, if it's a plastic bottle, you know, it can kind of break down. But
Yeah.
that's to each their own. You know what I mean? I don't like to keep it in my car.
But if it's an emergency.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I never have.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I know, that discussion board.
I think I got it from my dad. He was always, I'd rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it.
Yeah, I
We've
have
got-
a lot of stuff in my car usually. But
We found so much stuff cleaning out his house. I found like 2 boxes full of MREs that I think expired like 3 years ago.
right.
The powdered milk, you know. I'm like, what were you preparing for?
Some people have those rooms, you know, like have their like group tanning rooms. or
We have,
whatever.
it's in the shed.
Yeah.
Behind it, it looks like a wall, but it's actually like a canning room that the original owner used to have. So it's like all dark and
Yeah, it's like a cellar.
gross,
Yeah. My grandma had a cellar. super
like
creepy.
built into the side of the hill.
Yes, my grandma had one of those. It was terrifying, and we would lock each other in there as kids. Such a bad. That kid is cellar. Or you'd hide in there for hide and seek, and then somebody shot. Yeah, it did have a light. It was creepy.
But it was one of those like on a string light bulb
Yep,
lights.
it
Yeah.
was. Yep, it was. Yes, it was. And then they just had like shelves, like wooden shelves built in
With like a
to the
plank.
sides. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, like in it. And there was always like a little like cobwebs and stuff. I don't like it. I don't like it. But we like to get food out of it, you know. I like to have that. We just had a basement in my house. My mom put all that in the basement.
I love mobile order.
So is the other ones too?
You put the number you pulled in.
Huh? Is the other ones out
We
too?
get it, did it actually bring it up?
The other ones out too, the preschool school age? Oh, it's all right there, okay. Gotcha.
And they're all three sides are here.
Okay. I'm gonna do that afterwards.
And then you're saying that it's 16 to 20.
Okay. Actually, read 16 and 17.
Yeah, procedure.
What? Me too.
It's not her fault.
It's
It's not her fault that she
Despise her. I say, she goes and we get Toby Keith. I'll trade her out.
What does she do? She didn't do anything. Her
She's a
voice.
good person, right?
Don't listen to her.
She is like really upset with the two of you right now.
No, I'm a girl's girl and I'm not okay with you saying something that I don't want. It's not okay. What if somebody said that about you just because you're being famous?
Well,
It's
I'm sure they
successful.
probably would. I wouldn't care. But I wouldn't care because I wouldn't know how people in this world, because I have no famous people. She doesn't know me.
Supporting women until it's Taylor Swift. Love her.